Go for it.
So, welcome to Big Tech's Ordnance Podcast. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, so we're going to record this twice as fast.
Yeah, so listen faster.
Anyway.
And we're done. Thank you.
So, Scoped Carbine class. Who wants to go first on what you expected what were you expecting going in on it? Anybody want to start?
So, one thing that stood out to me was the amount of, how much he explained the theory behind it. Instead of just hey, here's do this, this, and this, he explained the why behind it. That really stood out to me.
So going into the class, I knew that there was going to be a classroom portion, but I didn't know there was going to be 4 hours of.
And he says that the class too is we can't really. It all has to be classroom because you can't really explain it on the range that well. It has to be done there in the classroom.
Yep.
He's going over speed milling, speed wind, which we ended up doing on the range because but
which was a perfect example.
Which was a perfect
we
example.
needed the visual.
Yeah,
it was a huge.
He was trying to explain it in a lot of blank stares, everyone's just kind of staring back at him, and then Jimmy runs in, grabs a whiteboard, and writes it out, and everyone's like, "Oh,
bing, 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 bing."
Yeah, I think the classroom portion, and it's definitely like he says in the class, it's not like a red dot pistol class or a 50-yard and in carbine class where you can explain some of these things on the range, right? You needed the board, you needed the examples, you needed to know the why behind the how.
It's math. It's more complex concepts. Yeah. There's a lot, especially the effects of wind and the percentage of the value of it. So 90 mile an hour wind, that's full value, but the difference in a 10% wind coming in from the 1 o'clock position, that's still, what was that
20%.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to what you would think of it would be.
Yeah, he draws it out, and it's not his chart, but there's a whole chart on how many degrees of angle that you're getting on the bullet, how much of, so if you have 30 mile an hour wind at 90 degrees, you're getting the full value 30 miles an hour. But if it's at the 1 o'clock position, you're not getting. It's not linear.
Yeah,
it's not linear. So 45 degrees you would think would be 50% value, and it's not. It's more like 70 or 75.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a linear progression. It's
yeah, and that definitely has to be explained. At least
with visuals.
With visuals. And both days. So day one, we were dealing with between a 5 and 26 mile an hour gusting wind. That was coming in at full value from the left and the right at sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes both.
Sometimes both. Sometimes both, depending on how far out it was. And then on day two, we had the fishtailing wind, which was almost just as bad to, compensate for when we were shooting downrange at 500 and 600 yards there later on. I think one of the biggest things that stood out in my mind about day one of the class, and I figure we'll just kind of go over this kind of in order of the class to stay on track here, was this class went way more into the details of the reticles, depending on what you were using. Pretty much everybody was mil, except for one guy who figured out on day two that he was mil MOA. But that hadn't been covered in some of the other optics-centric classes I've been in. I don't know about, you've been in a Scoped Carbine from somebody else, right? You've been in a Scoped Carbine from somebody else. Did they go into detail on the reticle?
No, this was definitely much more in depth.
What about you? I know you've been in some Scoped Carbine.
Yeah, it was, we delved into it, right? You have to, but definitely went to a different level for sure. A lot of, like you said, the theory was second to none. I've never seen any video. I've only taken one, but I haven't seen a lot of videos of people really going into, the different concepts that we went over.
Wish I had my notebook from class.
Yeah, that's what I was literally just thinking.
I know for me,
was like-
I mean, I've taken a handful of other rifle classes, but they've all been 100 yards and in. So this was my first Scoped Carbine class. And I'm not a huge fan of 3-day classes because by the third day, like after lunch, you're just shot. You know, you have to go to work on Monday. But I almost wish this was a 3-day class because it wasn't like the other classes where you're like in the sun, necessarily like running around. It was a lot of knowledge. It's not like it was like a chill. It was a different class compared to the other rifle classes I think that we're all used to taking. So I almost wish this was a 3-day class just to understand it better because it like me going in with the knowledge level of a potato.
Yeah,
Like
same.
I need to take that class like 100 times to understand it more. So I know for me to like go in, I almost wish I like did a little more homework. Like I watched some of Jimmy's videos and kind of was messing around online. I zeroed my rifle. You know, I went into class with a zeroed gun. But like that was it. Like my knowledge is literally nothing. So I know for me it was a longer class. Or I just need to take more of them just because to understand that all, it was like, holy fuck, especially in the classroom portion when he's going over all that. It's a lot to understand in a short period of time.
And even then, I feel like Joe could have probably sat there and just talked for like 48 hours straight. And never ran out of stuff to
And I'm not
to
saying
cover.
like make the classroom portion a day because like
Yeah.
everyone's gonna be like, all right, fuck this, I don't want to
Death
sit
by
here.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like to be on the range longer, or even to have like another afternoon of classroom, something like that, just to understand it would definitely be beneficial to me because I was pretty lost in the sauce.
I'm pretty slow sometimes. I don't think I would have been mad at a full day of
yeah, I mean at least like
classroom. or maybe
splitting it
maybe
up.
half a day on the first day, and then go zero, get your dope, and then go over delve a little deeper into some of the other theory.
Yeah.
Just kind of beat it into you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe for a couple hours the second day before hitting the range.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff that I know I need to like look up more and understand
I'm
more.
confident enough in my notes that I can go back out to the range and make some of these puzzle pieces fit together. Like,
Yeah.
I've got them, but they didn't quite click
There was
just because of the pace of the class.
There was a couple where I'm like, okay, I don't fully understand this. I'm gonna take a lot of notes, and I'll put the pieces, like you said, kind of put the pieces together later. But I took a lot of notes, and yeah, there's definitely a few things like that. I was like, I get what you're saying, but it's not clicking yet.
I've got to do it first a few
Yeah.
times.
I realized
at my
about
own pace.
sorry about that. I realized about halfway through when he was doing the speed math. I was like, just like in my head, I was like, I'm not going to use this at all. I have to worry about everything else. My app tells me what I need to do. I need to focus on that. Speed math later. like literally.
And
I was like, I'm done. I'm not worrying about it.
Yeah, like there's a few calculations that you have to run for some of the stuff. I'm like, I don't think I can really apply this quite yet. I'm gonna write it down so I know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna focus on this, and then I'll work those calculations in your head and later.
Yeah, the speed drop, I didn't actually understand it well enough to apply it until probably like 3/4 of the way through day 2 is when I actually was able to apply it. So.
And were you actually doing that, or were you using your?
I mean, that part really, the math isn't that hard, but the wind, no, I haven't figured that out. Okay. No.
Yeah, the wind.
The speed wind.
I use the speed mills, for the drop.
Yeah,
I use
that's not so
that.
bad.
That's
'cause
not.
You do
'cause it's just-
you do the math before, and then you have your.
Yeah, and it's yardage minus whatever
Yeah.
your value is, which
Exactly.
was 1.5. And then also too on the targets that we were hitting, I even kind of rounded up, rounded a little bit, because the target's big enough that you have that little bit of adjustment already built in there.
Yep.
So even if your math's 3/10 of a mil off, your target's big enough that you're still going to hit if you do everything.
Which is kind of
correctly.
the idea behind speed drop, anyways. It's not ultra precise. It's just to get you on, essentially within 500 yards.
I just use my app.
I also wrote my dope on my buffer tube, which
I had it on my arm, but it wiped off.
Yeah, and it changed.
Lesson learned.
That-
And it changed.
That was one thing where like
That was wild.
where Joe said like
Oh, the
make-
atmospheric conditions and stuff.
well, like make a major correction, like
Oh yeah.
Bold
like
corrections.
yeah, bold
Oh, yeah,
corrections.
bold, yep.
And I said it in the podcast with Joe was like when we were doing that little competition thing was like I missed every round. And at the end of it, I looked at the dude spotting because they weren't giving us corrections. And I was like, where was I missing? He's like, dude, you sent every round probably like 2 inches over his head. And I was like, fuck. Like if I just would have, I was making tiny adjustments, like tiny difference in my hold where I should have just, instead of doing that, I should have just aimed at his feet.
Yeah, shoot the bottom of the target.
Yeah, shoot the bottom of the target or just like aim a foot in front of the grass just to see, okay, there's my splash or dirt or whatever. And
At least know where you're tracking.
exactly.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, let me hold here. And then like, let me, I should have just, and I didn't think about it till after, that the 15, 20 rounds, whatever it was. And I was like, wow, that was stupid, Ian. Like, why didn't I make a bold correction like that instead of, oh, let me just hold here. Let me like, and I asked him, he's like, hey, dude, you sent like every round right over his head. If you would have just aimed at his, lower portion of the target, you would have smacked him with probably every round. And I was like, fuck, like,
You suppressed the hell out of that steel.
yeah, yeah.
Like missed differently. Somebody even, I think Robert yelled it out at one point when you were shooting, was missed differently, Ian.
Yeah, and like I readjusted myself. So I was like, all right, maybe that's when I stuck my feet over, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm square behind the gun, I'm comfortable, and I'm like, what am I fucking doing wrong?
We might even post, like, combine the video of you talking about it with the video of doing it.
Oh,
because
do
it
we
does
get that?
exist.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does work.
At one point, he was just like full on hanging off the edge of the
Yeah, I literally-
Conex.
My feet were hanging off the edge. I mean, I wasn't going anywhere, but I missed every round, and I was really frustrated at myself because I'm looking at my my reticle, and I'm like, adjusting. I adjusted every way. I just didn't do it, bold enough to get that what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But again, I learned something.
Yep.
So
That's what we're there for.
as we transitioned out of the classroom and onto the range, we confirmed zeros, went through that process. My zero shifted a little bit from even the day prior due to atmospheric conditions, and there was some miscommunication there between me and my spotter on where I was hitting on that one. And then once I got on, I was like 4 mils low or something,
Oh wow.
which was huge. But I need to go witness mark all my shit just in case that's the actual issue. But I didn't have any other issues like that the rest of the day once I got on. What y'all think about that first drill that we did at 100, where we did this, shot the dots?
Oh yeah. So that was what was it? There's a 1/2 inch dot inside of a 1 inch dot inside of a 2 inch dot.
2-inch circle.
So it's a 2 inch black circle, a 1 inch circle, and then a 1/2 inch black dot. So it's high contrast.
Yep.
But what he would do was he had us first. We zeroed on that, and then we were doing double taps basically. Or first was
First was a 5-shot group.
yeah. Then there was reactives, right?
Then it was
reactive
from
doubles.
standing
Then it
to
was
getting on your
stand
gun.
up,
Oh,
get
that's
in the
right.
gun, build a position, and then
Fire
holding
around.
the gun, get down, build a position, fire.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
those were five each or 10 each or something like
Yeah.
that.
That's right. Yeah, because there were 6 dots,
And
right?
then we did the doubles on the bottom 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then that was when we finally got to the last of the 6 dots. You were moving pretty fast and still and shooting, but most of I've got a picture on my phone that I'll put up on here. I mean, but we're still within a 2 MOA circle. I mean, 90% of my hits were all within that circle, and that was impressive to me because we're still shooting. You're shooting 2 MOA out of an AR, which is still impressive for that platform in the speed at which we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
At 100 yards.
At 100 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is further than most carbine classes typically do at that
Yep.
speed, which was interesting.
Especially with that accuracy standard.
Yeah, it was
Normally
relatively high standard
Yeah. Yeah.
for what we were doing.
It wasn't just hit a piece of steel and here go bing. It was, no, you have a
Yeah,
2
12 MOA target at 100
Yeah.
yards.
You know, at 100 yards, you're shooting a 2-inch circle. So
Yeah.
don't suck.
That's from standing, building in position, getting steady, all that kind of stuff in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah. Seconds.
And then the doubles that we did, there was predictive or reactive, which was you fire your first one, let the reticle settle, fire your second
React
one.
to where it went, essentially.
And then the predictive was fire it, and then before it gets there, know where it's going. And it's supposed to be like a really quick, like, quarter second split. Is
Drive the gun back down to
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was very.
Which I did not hit quarter second splits. I'll throw that out
No.
there. I was not close. I was more like 1 second.
Yeah. No, not even
At best.
Not even close. And that comes to what we were building our positions with. I think.
See, the biggest problem for me throughout the entire class was getting stable. Like, I felt like my reticle was. There were some positions that I got into where I was like rock solid, but I had a problem for me building a good position and getting steady. I don't know if that's me or technique or just lack of practice, but it felt like my reticle was moving around a lot.
Yeah. What powers you were running? What power scope?
A 3.6 to 18 Mark V.
But you never got past.
I was usually 10 to 12 is where
10
I
to
dialed
12
it to.
where you were hanging out at.
Mm-hmm. Just so I could see more, because most of the class we were going from like doing 200, then reaching out to 6. Like, you're shooting 2 targets, you got 200, then you have to immediately go to 6. So trying to find at 18, trying to go from 2 and oh shit, where's the 600 yard berm?
Yeah.
You need more field of view
Yep.
through the glass to be able to see it.
Even.
Go ahead.
Oh, go.
I was gonna say that was the one big thing too, is like having a good bag, or just a bigger bag to make your platform more stable, whether you're bracing off the chair, the ladder, the rail, or even the ground when you're in the prone, makes a huge difference also.
Yeah. So that we'll go into that gear issues here in a minute. That was pretty much day one.
Yeah.
4 hours of classroom. We ate lunch, and then it took us a while to do the dots
Because that was 6 different dots after zeroing.
after zeroing, 6 different dots. But he also talked about building the position in each. He had it broke down into, well, first dot, this is what we're doing. Second dot, this is what we're doing. We had instruction in between each dot, so we just didn't go right in and do the whole 6-dot drill.
Where did we build positions? Was it?
Day 2 was all the different.
Oh no, I mean
positions.
like
on
for
the ground. That was right. That
it was all just
pretty
prone.
much right after zeroing.
It was all
Yeah.
prone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do any kneeling or anything like
Not
that.
at that time, no.
Day
Okay.
1 was all prone. The most movement that we had was from the burpees
Yeah, the burpees.
up to down.
Do your burpees, people.
Yep.
And then after we shot those 6 drills, I think was my favorite part of the class, which was talking about the Applied Ballistics app. That app is a game changer.
Yeah.
Just the
And having somebody there to walk me through how to do it.
right,
Because like
teaching you all the cheat codes.
I know all these boxes and stuff. But
Yeah. And then the whole, go in here, find the local weather station, sync to the local weather station.
I've used the ballistic app for a long time, and it's great because you can put in the bullet that you're shooting, your velocity, some atmospheric conditions, wind, all that. Choose whether you want your information in Miller MOA, 1/10, 2/10, whatever. But you couldn't save any profiles.
oh wow.
Applied Ballistics app, you can save profiles. You can save multiple bullet profiles for each gun. But then what we did at the end of the day on Saturday was shoot at, I think half the group shot at 600 and half shot at 700. After Joe finished teaching how to use the app and did his little wind theory whiteboard class,
Yeah.
confirmed at those far distances.
Yeah, you trued it
plugged
at
that in
that.
and trued the app, and I know mine showed that I was supposed to be 6.9 mils at 700, and I wound up being 7.2. So that changed everything and made it all, made all my holds work better.
And the way he did that too was cool because like he had like AC steel at 600 or 700, depending on which line you fell into, but he had like a line all the way across, and you would hold at that line. Don't give a shit about the windage, like doesn't matter. But then get a couple shots and see where you are on that line, and that's how he was able to true it. So anybody at home that might want to true it, that's a good method to use because it's harder if you're just like shooting steel, like a blank piece of steel, and you're trying to see where your hits were. But if you have that line as a reference point,
Got
like
that
I'm
as
hoping,
an aiming point and as a
Yeah.
point to see where your hits are.
yeah.
And so by truing that,
And you can adjust if you're low. You can adjust there, get it trued, and then like how much adjustment you made.
and you're truing your app to your reticle to your muzzle velocity.
Yeah,
at that
it's
distance.
It's
Yes.
like
You're
a second
confirming
data
your
point.
muscle. Your muzzle.
Yeah, because
velocity.
I had to adjust because my muzzle velocity is way higher than it actually was because I was going off bad data.
Mm-hmm.
And once we did it, I was like, oh, it's this.
Yeah,
You know,
because
it
you've
was like
got
2 mils.
like when you first plug in your muzzle velocity, unless you have a chrono, that's just like a guesstimate,
Yep.
a best guess. And even if you do have a chrono, it's still nice to be able to confirm what it's actually doing 600 yards downrange.
I had chronoed mine over a 10 or 20 round string, but seeing that it changed, it wasn't as consistent. BC might have been a little off, something like that.
Yeah,
It was definitely cool.
yeah, very cool. Definitely helped. It got us a lot better data, which helped us as we went on. Because if you're starting with good data, the information that you're going to get from that data as you progress is quite a bit better.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about what we're doing there, and in no way, I think we need to clarify on one point is like in no way was this class like sniper-y long range. There was no one shot. It was one shot if you miss immediate follow-up. If you got your data because you saw the splash at 600 to the left, it was immediate.
Make your correction.
Make your own correction. It was immediate. Make your own correction. Did I say that right, or am I
No,
hearing it wrong?
I think you're right.
All right. It was immediate. Make your own correction, and then fire again,
Mm-hmm.
or make your own wind call, which was huge.
Yep.
Because you might be down, and the first time you got in that position, you're holding a mil and a half, 2 mils of wind, and then the next time you're down there, there's no wind.
Like I know one point on the second day I was shooting, and the way he had it set up was the spotters, like you'll get 2 or 3 misses, and then without the spotters, because they want you to make your own corrections, and then after the third or fourth miss or whatever, they'll give you a little bit of feedback. I remember I was shooting one, like I think it was at 600, and I shot, and I was a little bit left, and he started giving me corrections, and at that point there was like no wind, but I happened to look up and I saw the sock just go sideways. I was like, oh snap! So I made that little wind call correction right there and was able to get a hit.
To get on.
But I mean, the wind was changing so constantly out there. Especially the first day it was 5 to 26, but the second day sometimes it'd be dead silent, and sometimes it'd be up to about 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was interesting. So day 2, we got back out there. We started nice and early, and we went right into equipment and positions. Right? We talked about different bags. We talked about tripods later on in the day. Right?
That was very later.
So we started with bags, or we started with positions, and then we built positions with bags. And we're talking about what were some of the bags that we had out there? The Armageddon gear, right? Was that one?
Mm-hmm.
I had a wee bad.
Yeah.
Wee bad.
I had a Badger.
Mini fortune cookie.
There was
Game
one in
changer,
particular.
mini
Yeah,
game
game changer.
changer.
Mine
That
was,
one was
the
cool.
really light wee bad. I think Joe was using like a really heavy game changer. I had like more sand. Mine was like more pellets. I think
Yeah.
a heavier bag would have helped.
Yeah.
I like those big heavy bags.
Yeah, the big heavy
but
bags.
they're
It was
also-
definitely better than like the Badger ones. That
Yeah,
you bought.
that's
that
pretty
was
small.
difficult. And I think those are designed more just to have something small on you.
Yep.
Yeah, that
but-
was great for like in the prone zeroing,
Yeah.
but like any positional with a bag, you definitely need
A bigger
like
bag.
a big, heavy.
I was
bag.
really glad to have that wee bag because it was like, it wasn't a huge one, but it was big. It had the little half donut or whatever.
Fortune cookie. I think
Yeah, the
they call
fortune
it.
cookie, and that
Yeah.
that helped out quite a bit. I was glad to have it.
Yeah, I was running the same one. I liked that bag a lot.
I was glad to have it.
So we
They're in
started
conversation.
position shooting, and we were shooting off the rail. That we were on top of a Connex with a rail around us, and so we were shooting off the metal rail in 2 positions. We were shooting off a tank trap. We were shooting off a VTAC barricade, We were also shooting off of a ladder,
A box fan.
a circular
big-ass
box
fan.
fan,
Yeah.
and
A very flimsy folding chair.
very
The
the
flimsiest of all
flimsiest.
folding chairs.
Fuck that
Wish
I've
chair.
got
.com.
lawn chairs that give you more support than that thing did.
Yeah, fuck that chair, man.
That chair was absolutely
that chair-
horrible.
Which is funny because I actually shot really well off the fan and the chair.
The fan was
The fan you
phenomenal.
could lock onto.
Yeah.
The fan, because it was a large fan. We might put pictures up on that, but like you could get like 7 points of contact
Yeah.
on it.
It was like
You
a
could-
48-inch fan.
Yeah, you could get your bipod on. You could get your magazine
mag,
on it.
yeah.
You could get your rear grip on it almost. You
A
could
bag
get
with your
a bag
elbow.
on
Yeah,
it.
if you
could
bagged
get
your rear grip, that was like
both elbows down on it and lean into it. And I think, most of that was because it was a large curved surface.
Yep.
And you could really sink down in. Like if I had to pick out a position on those positions to shoot 1,000, I would have chose the fan, just because of the stability that thing gave you.
I don't know. That tank trap was pretty nice. Like once you
got into it,
once you
yeah.
got into it, figured out where you wanted to be. That was
Especially if you wrapped your sling, which was
That
really
was-
Oh, there-
one of the coolest tricks that I'd
Yeah.
probably ever seen. Is you disconnect your sling off your buttstock and you can wrap it around the tank trap. You can wrap it on a tree,
a
fence
post, a pil-
post,
yeah.
Your
literally friend, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of
And
the
just
biggest
cinch it in.
cool things about the class. That like one of those light bulb moments was when he took his sling and wrapped it around the tank trap and basically, tied his gun off.
Yeah, that was
friction
Locked
wrapped.
it in.
That
and
was one
locked
of
it in.
that was one of
Yeah.
my biggest takeaways from that class was just the amount of creativity that he put in. He went on for what, like 20 minutes of just, you can do this,
Yeah.
you can do this. So you take the bag, you put it here, you put this here, like just
Yeah.
nonstop knowledge. I'm just like trying to take mental notes and
Yeah,
And that's what
That was
it's all
wild.
about, is like getting stable and
Yep.
giving the most rock solid position that you can get. And like some of the like you said, like it was a lot of out of the box thinking, like
yeah,
stuff
very out of the box.
I never would have like.
You-
holy shit.
it's almost like he's done it for a long time. Or
Yeah.
something.
yeah,
It's
And-
almost
and
like
he's-
he's done it before.
Almost like he was a SEAL.
Yeah.
yeah. And he's the first person to tell you that all of the concepts he teaches in the class are his and his alone, and nobody else came up with it.
That's right.
All right. But no, seriously, he gave credit to where everybody,
Yeah, for sure.
where credit was due, if he knew where that technique came from, and
Mostly from PRS and not the
yep.
teams.
yeah,
Yeah,
mostly
that's-
from PRS.
He's upfront about that too. He's like, a lot of this stuff came from watching the dude over there in overalls, at the PRS match. Like,
Completely
like
outshooting him.
tripod rear support.
Oh,
Like,
that was
what
another.
the hell is that?
That's
that
Alexa.
That's Alexa. But yeah, like tripod rear support. That was pretty interesting. And he talked about how he saw somebody do that in a match, and then was like, "Oh, we're just done now."
yeah, he's like,
That is absolutely interesting. I don't know if Joe's covered that before in a video or not, but if he has, go check it out. If he hasn't,
Take a class.
take a class.
What did you guys think about when he was teaching, like with your arc rail clamped into a tripod, running your sling back to your belt?
Oh yeah,
That's pretty neat.
yep. I
Put that
clicked
forward
into
pressure
my.
on that.
I was running, and we'll talk about gear a second here. I was running the hog leash from Ridgeline, and on when we were on the tripod, that's what I did. I just took it off, clipped it right onto my belt loop, and leaned back into it, and it was on. It was really good support on there. Any other concepts on day 2?
let's talk about that tripod rear support, because he said it, and like he was talking, he's like, we're gonna go over tripod rear support, and in my mind, I thought he was gonna like adjust the tripod down, set the buttstock on the tripod or whatever, and I was like, I'm like, I'm not really sure this is like.
Yeah.
You're like,
I had
don't
something
have
entirely
Arc-A-Rail
different.
in the rear of my buttstock.
I was like, okay, I trust you, Joe, but I was like, what is this? And what he ended up doing was just the tripod, and you rested on the rail or whatever it is, but then you basically you would grip the tripod as you would like a rear bag. You have it set up right against the buttstock, kind of grip it as you would a rear bag, and using that as another point of stability.
The
It's
r-
kind of hard to explain.
Yeah. I'll see if we got it on video.
You're using
anyway.
verbally.
One leg of the tripod.
You're
not
using-
the,
yeah.
not the head of the.
It's just sitting next to you, and you're just literally holding onto it as a rear support.
I was so impressed with how much rear support. So I've really never messed around with rear support stuff
Me neither.
ever. I was really impressed with how much support you get whenever you put anything back there. And then I was like thinking in my mind, kicking myself for the years and years that I was on the line where you're trying to get Joe zeroed and you have all these sandbags around and nobody ever says take it and stick that sandbag under the rear of the rifle when you're trying to get more support. I'm just like,
That's a
I could
very
have been
good
done
point.
so much faster and had much better zeros for my Joes for that one and it was there on the ground. But nobody ever says anything. Anyway, kicking myself on that. But rear support's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So gear-wise, who had new stuff? Brand new stuff. We all had brand new stuff.
Yeah, that
right?
wee bag was new. That was my first time using
Yeah.
that bag.
So I was shooting 14.5 FCD build that was brand new. No issues. Had some charging handles issues that I'm going to definitely look into due to my scope or my optic, and the size of that charging handle is just kind of a pain unless you're really on it and in any sort of decent position, but trying to charge it with it slung and it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You were shooting your 6mm arc, right?
I've shot that before, but never. The range is only 100, so I just kind of basically got a 0 on it, and that's the extent of the shooting I've done with that. But being able to take it out to distance was pretty cool.
How much of a drop were you seeing in yours out at distance? Like,
it's pretty comparable to a 5.56 because I had my 14.5 out there as well in 5.56 that Hodge. If you look at the charts on it, it's very, very comparable, almost tracking exactly. The only difference really is I have more kinetic energy at distance because I've got a bigger bullet, a heavier grain, but velocities were pretty similar, and the drop was pretty similar.
I didn't know if that thing shot flatter or not.
Not really. It almost tracks. It tracks.
Yeah, I
really,
noticed
really,
you had similar dope
Yeah.
to all of us. Yeah.
It's really, really close to 5.56.
What about you, Justin?
What was I shooting?
Yeah.
I had a 14.5 Hodge Mod 2. The scope, it was my first time using a mil scope. I've always used BDCs. That's what I've had before. And I enjoyed, like, I really like the concept. Like, I'm pretty much sold on it, obviously. I'm not going back. So, yeah.
What scope were you
It
running?
was the Vortex Viper PST 2-10.
And did you have just a single reticle, or did you have a Stadia, like a Christmas tree reticle on it?
No, there was no Christmas tree, which I noticed. When you're holding and then trying to make wind calls, that was pretty hard because you don't have any reference.
Yeah.
So, that's it. As you go through, it makes sense. Like why people that's why people like that. That's
Yeah.
why people spend the money to get that. You definitely need certain things.
And
Which
your
is-
reticle was
So mine was just mils, just hash marks or whatever. So I have the same scope, or they're both Mark 5s, but on the 14.5, the 5.56 gun, I think it's a Trimmer 3,
Yeah.
which has all your trees and stuff. So in between, like on the second day when we were doing barricades, the people up top, those barricades naturally progress slower because it's harder to get in those positions and stuff. So we were down at the VTACs, and I had my 14.5 there, so I started playing around with that, going out to like 600 and 200 and stuff. And I kind of want to play with it some more, but I can definitely see the benefit of having like that Christmas tree reticle, because when you're adding wind and holding 4 elevation, when you're holding 5 mils, and also have like a mil or 2 of wind, it's really nice having the whole Christmas tree and stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to play with that, maybe a Horus reticle too, but I'm not sold on either one yet, but I do want to play with it
because
some more.
we definitely were not dialing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
was
was
saying that's some
everything-
context that they needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're going to dial, but this entire class, 0 dialing.
Except for truing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you true.
Except for
Yeah.
truing.
And
Getting
so-
dope and truing, we were dialing, obviously.
But everything else for the entire class was nothing but holds. So that was, if I that's kind of what has me rethinking the Tremor or the Horus or some sort of Christmas tree reticle.
Yep, would have been huge.
Yes. I was running a 16-inch with the loophole 2-10 and shot great. But yeah, did not have, it was the TMR reticle and the 2-10. And I liked it. Good setup. Definitely some things I would change on the rifle. I know the...
Hold. We're going to have to do battery changes. Hold that.
Hold what you
Do you want
got.
to do 2 battery changes at the same time?
I am. I'm going to do a memory card change.
A really
looks
stupid
totally
shoe that will
stupid.
never catch on.
Fucking Crocs.
We're literally living idiocracy.
I saw that short this morning, I think. All right, so Ian,
So
reticle.
Are we live? Are we good?
Yeah, everything should be recorded.
So yeah, I was 16-inch, 2-10 loophole, TMR reticle in that. Like everyone else said, definitely having some Christmas tree options would be nice in that. I mean, I hit out to 600 with it. When it turns off, it was good. So rifle shot good. The one thing I would change, and
Car ran good today.
car ran good today. The one thing I would change would be one of my QD sling
Swivels?
Yeah, swivels. Thank you. That's the word. The one I have is one of the smaller Magpul ones that has like the little tabs on the side instead of the push button.
Mag 543.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus 540.
For all you nerds out there,
That's what
I know. I was going to say it, but nobody else would understand it. So yeah, I have the Mag 543.
which is like their.
It's like the
It's
low
the enhanced
profile.
one.
It's like the little.
It's more expensive.
Yeah,
And the
it's-
540 is just the push button.
Exactly. So like getting my sling off or back on like quickly, if you were in that situation where you wanted to wrap your sling around, I don't know if that's something you would do quickly, but I was sitting there like trying to finger fuck my sling thing to get it off, and I'm like, okay, just 1 second, guys, and I'm like, okay, got it, and then finally was able to get it, off,
Yeah.
and then it's like the same thing getting it back on because those tabs are so small and you're trying to get it on there. So that's like one simple thing that I would change on my rifle, at least for that rear one, just so you can boop, hit it, wrap it around, and it's easy, and it takes 2 seconds compared to a minute to get that thing off. Or maybe just my fingers are stupid and I don't know how to
It
use
shouldn't
them.
take you a minute, but yeah.
It's definitely, I'll bring it in. It's definitely kind of
Definitely longer.
Yeah.
That's what I have on mine, but it is definitely longer than just the button in the middle.
Yeah.
for sure.
I like the good old push button, man.
Yeah, that's what I need to put on at least the rear one is the push button. So that change will be happening.
What about you, Aaron?
I was running a gun that I built.
I don't know what.
Why is that funny?
This guy thinks he knows how to build a gun. 16-inch Hodge barrel, Night Force 2-10, second focal plane, bad idea.
Oh, so you were the one guy that had the second focal plane.
Me and Tanner.
Oh,
Me and
okay.
Tanner were both
Oh,
running
well-
Night Force 2-10, second focal plane, and forgot that second focal plane reticles are not accurate on not full power. So, full magnification.
Yeah.
No, gun ran great. Had no trouble hitting. Wish I had a little more barrel for some more velocity. Wish I had a better reticle. That's really the big things.
So were we all shooting Hodge barrels?
Sounds like it.
Everybody?
Mine technically, I guess technically is.
Technically.
It's a prototype.
This will be deleted now.
We're all going to be deleted now.
Yeah, great.
Predators inbound.
Anyway, so I think one of the best things that I got out of that was so my first Scoped Carbine class I took was with a Razor 1.6. Realized in that class, Green Ops, that I did not like the reticle.
Yeah.
Because, it was just, there's some stadia lines on it and a big red dot in the middle, and you're good. For what we were wanting to do, that is absolutely not what we wanted.
So Paul shot that my rifle with that optic, because I bought that optic from you, and 12.5, he got out to 600 yards. He was out there shooting it. Definitely not the easiest.
But
I think
that
he was
1-in-6 twist.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Paul misunderstood me. He asked me what the twist was, and I thought he meant what the magnification was, but he was talking about barrel twist.
Oh shit! So he's putting 1 to 6.
So
in
he
his...
put 1 to 6 barrel twists in his ballistic calculator, and he was looking at me. He's like, 1 to 6, and this was like middle of the next day, and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Paul?" It's like, it's a 1 to 7. He's like, "You told me 1 to 6." I was like, "Yeah, that was the fucking optic, like not the barrel." And he's like, "Oh my god." He's like, "Well, now like I can't change anything because it's all based off of 1 to 6." And I was like, "Wow." I'm like, I totally misunderstood you there. I was like,
But that was good.
Yeah.
Paul definitely was the lucky man in the class because he got our extra slot, didn't have a gun. I think all he brought was himself and ammo.
yeah.
And he got into the class, which is really good. But I definitely enjoyed the reticle on the SR5 reticle on that EOTech 1 to 10, to the point where at one point when it was me and you were doing our shoot off,
Yeah, where I missed every round.
Where you
Yeah,
missed
don't
every
have to
round.
Remind me.
I literally saw splash on one of my dots after I pressed the trigger. Right,
Like,
so
oh.
like I was like, "Oh, it's that dot." Dink. And I went through, and I think I missed maybe 1 or 2 more rounds out of it. But being able to use that reticle to do all my holds, call hits, I picked up trace a couple times when I was spotting for other people in it. It's not as clear as some of the higher end glass that was out there, but I love the reticle on it for sure. Let's see, other gear. What would you have liked to have after taking the class?
I felt I was pretty solid, gear wise. Everything else was on me. Software. A heavier bag might have helped, and then I've shot mainly the 6 arc, which is just the the hashes or whatever. Having something with a tree would have been helpful for this class. The bipod ran great. I had the Badger Harris little combo that they have that worked out pretty well. I think I really don't have any other complaints. I think just maybe a heavier bag and reticle wise, but everything else, I can't blame anything else other than me.
Yeah.
Ammo. I wish I would have took better ammo because I didn't fork up the cash for match
you
ammo.
kind of
So.
got fucked on ammo.
Yeah, I bought some match ammo, and I won't name it, but it didn't run. I was blowing primers. So, but the reticle, definitely, like Christmas tree reticle would be, or whatever. I don't know if that's just what we're calling it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Christmas tree reticle, that's what it is. And then a big rear bag. Because I had that Badger. It worked, but you had to really try to make it work. Meanwhile, if you had a big bag, you could just throw it under there, and it's like you're set like almost immediately. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing.
And a tripod.
Yeah,
I
tripod.
want a really nice tripod after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, right?
You could spend
Have more money in the tripod than you do in the gun.
Literally.
Yeah, I was looking those up yesterday.
Yeah.
I was bored when I got home, and I think Joe posted something on his Instagram, and I was on Really Right's Instagram, and then went to their website, and I was like,
Holy
I
shit.
was like, well, that's as much as my optic was. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
spicy.
there's some definite.
But there's a huge difference. I mean, it's the same like any. If you're in this, everyone kind of knows the difference between like spending the money on a decent optic, a crappy optic, a good optic, compared to a shitty tripod and a good tripod. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the really only thing I would change I love the rifle. Optic has a little to be desired. I wouldn't change it for my knowledge level going into this. I think it's something I can definitely learn on. I mean, it's not like I'm shooting, SPC or not SPC, PRS matches all the time. It's taking a class here and there, going hunting with it, whatever. Would probably be a rear bag, a decent heavy rear bag, and then the QD swivel, just something easy. Other than that, rifle ran great. So
more glass, first focal plane, maybe a little more magnification, better reticle, and I really, really had spotter envy for Jimmy's Mark V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That his
that's on
spotting
the
scope is
list.
really nice.
That's what I was going to talk about too. Is I don't own a spotting scope or a tripod. I think those are things that I would like to get.
Your binoculars are really nice.
I
though.
will say
yeah.
this though, like so we have the SIG. It's like a 16 power, but it's the image stabilization, and that thing is phenomenal. So like it's got a gyroscope inside, and you can just be standing. And normally you're looking through binoculars, you got like the Parkinson's. You got the shake. It's like it's hard to see stuff. You usually have to like lean up against a post. Or for me,
Yeah.
I do. I have to lean up against a post or something, and even then it's still pretty shaky. But it's got a gyroscope in there, so it just levels everything off. And I was out there just standing on top of the Connex, 700 yards, seeing everything just perfectly, standing, not sitting, not leaning, just standing, just chilling. The only time I had to change was when my arms got tired for standing there for so long.
Yeah, there was a couple times there you were when the wind was hitting just right and the spotting scopes were a little wobbly. You were doing better on calling than a lot of that stuff. Because there was a few instances where you called it and like I mean you're sitting there just like kick back and you're like that's a hit and you're like that was a hit. But you were those binoculars are pretty freaking cool. I looked through them too.
Even out to 1,000, you could 100% call hits.
Yeah,
with
if we were
those.
shooting at 1,000, I'd feel confident in calling
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Like it's
I was
like
impressed.
on the first day, some of the spotting scopes they're like shaking quite a bit because you're 40, 50 power or whatever.
And the wind.
And then the wind, even no matter we're on top of Connex, super stable surface, but just the wind at 20 miles an hour was shaking them. With those binoculars, that was a game changer.
Yeah, those were. Can you put a bipod? Is there like an attachment for a bipod on those?
I am not for sure. I
You
know they're
can
coming.
absolutely lay a sandbag on top of a tripod.
Oh,
and
yeah.
strap it to it.
Yeah.
Nick had one of those.
They're coming out with a 24 power, which I want to get, and they're also putting that technology in a rangefinder.
Oh, nice.
So
That would be handy.
yeah,
Yeah, those were pretty sweet.
I keep those 16s at the house, and I love them. And taking them out to this was like for spotting. I was like,
The only thing I would like different on those is for have a milled reticle on it.
Oh,
that
yeah.
way you could call adjustments very easy. That's the only thing because
yeah,
like
because Jimmy's.
Joe's spotting
Joe's
scope
had mills.
had the milled
Yeah,
eyepiece
that
on
was-
it, which
that made
was
it nice.
phenomenal. But like, oh, you're 3.25 mils left.
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean you could see it. That was pretty cool. I think on my end, even though they were not, it was not covered, or they were covered in Joe's bipod portion. I had a Magpul bipod because that's what we had at the time and that's what we needed. I don't think anything that I did was because of having the bipod. I fixed it to where it wouldn't pan anymore, which is an option. You just unscrew it and rescrew it in a different way. But seeing his Atlas that would go at a 45 degree, I can definitely see instances where I've shot off simulator rooftops before, right? With like a 8-12 pitch standard rooftop where you wanted something that would go at a different angle. I could see those Atlas bipods being a real bonus on that, being able to run the legs at 45 degrees.
Yeah, because my Harris is either it's up or it's down.
It's up or it's
Yeah.
down.
And
It's
like you
no
said, having
halfway.
those angles would be
would be cool.
yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a little bit wider base, and they can do a little bit of cool stuff to them too. So I think maybe a better bipod, and then possibly like options on a rear bag, like the Game Changer, the mini Game Changer were really cool. The bigger bags were nice. The heavier bags, I shot off the light bags and I shot off the heavier bags. I liked the heavier bags for the options it gave you, and when you stuck it on something, it kind of stuck
Just
there.
stay there, yeah.
And the grunt in me just wants one of those little puff pillows because, bro,
Field pillow.
field pillow, sit pillow. Oh, and watch this. I can use it to shoot with. Like, amazing little stuff.
That was really cool.
When we were on the chair, I put that behind my knees on the chair, and I was like, hey, this is 100% more comfortable. And it like locked me in more.
Yeah.
And that was
that was definitely
Yeah.
cool.
There is one piece of gear I left out was a level, an anti-cant device.
Anti-cant device. Yep.
That would be nice. I thought about putting one on. I was like, nah, it'll be all right. And yeah, because like a couple times I was shooting like out at 600 or 700, and I noticed that my rifles, I could tell, like visually could tell that it was canted. I was like, okay, well if I can see this, what am I not seeing?
Yeah.
It would be nice to have that, just to take that out of the equation.
One thing
I think I'll be adding one of those to mine.
One thing that he brought up that would have helped Cade, I believe, who ran out of elevation on his scope, was the 20 MOA, having a 20 MOA base
Or
mount for your optic, and that's one thing that I've never even thought of being even handy for an LPVO on a 5.56 rifle. Like, I'm like, oh, that's just a little overkill. That's a little overkill to have a 20 millimeter base on a AR. You're not really going to use it unless you do need it.
It's really funny you say that, because for a while, the reason I didn't have an optic on that ARC was I was waiting for a non-20 MOA cant to come in 35 millimeters so I could put the Mark V on there. And I was like, I'm not shooting out to 1,500, 2,000 yards. It's not a precision gun. It's like it's a more precise gun, but I was like, I don't need the 20 MOA cant. But having him explain it in class is like, it's one of those things that's nice
it's a
to
free
have.
6 or 7 mils.
Yeah. Like I didn't run out of elevation by any means. I was never close, but having that option would have been really nice.
Yeah.
Or it's a nice feature to have, to not have to worry about later down the road.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I can walk in the back right now.
The 20 MOA
and get a 20 MOA cant 174, because I was running a 193, which is a little high.
Yep.
And my only complaint of that 193 mount was the fact that, like, if I was in a position that was slightly a little bit awkward, eye box was really hard to hold. Like if I was prone, I was fine. Seated, I was fine, but getting in like weird behind a ladder, then I was having trouble finding that spot. And I want to think that it was because I was having a hard time getting a consistent cheek well with that higher 193 mount, even though I did have an adjustable cheek riser on my B5 stock, which was fucking amazing, by the way. But yeah, there's a bunch of enlightening moments. And so as I'm saying this, and we're getting close to a full hour on here, and we're probably going to run out of battery life again. I'm thinking about calling Joe today and be like, hey, let's schedule the 4-day Scoped Carbine 1, Scoped Carbine 2, back to back out of the ranch for next year.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be awesome.
Just to go through all 4 days of it, get more into wind, get more into calling, get more into spotting on those days 3 and 4 than you did get, because there's so much more.
Like I definitely want to take another Scoped Carbine 1 before I do anything else, because there was so much that I didn't learn, and a lot more practice I need to do. But I think having those 2 classes back to back to be able to build on to that in the same weekend, like while it's all fresh, you're all still there, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, and do a little camping.
Yeah, I slept in the hammock.
Yeah,
We had air mattresses in the little, what do we call it? I'm not gonna say what we called it.
Yeah.
In the long range building. Sorry.
Yeah, we made breakfast.
Yeah,
We made
steaks for dinner.
We watched Lightning. We watched SpongeBob. We
Watched
all
the
missed a great
World War
time.
II
World War II
Yep,
documentaries.
went to
in the
sleep
evening.
with some nice explosions and
Yeah, it was, couldn't
machine
really
gun
ask for a
fire.
better
Yeah,
weekend.
it was nice.
you hit out to, how far did you hit out with the hog?
600 yards in the dark. Justin hit out to 700 yards.
Well, that was with the help of the Blazer, I think.
Yeah.
But
But 600 yards with the hog.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I was impressed by it. And that was the PLH. It wasn't even the OKW.
yeah, that's the
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No
I mean,
problem.
you couldn't, it wasn't like daylight bright. Like, if I didn't have an LPVO, there was no way that you were seeing, like, what that was.
And
But,
if it
like,
wasn't white steel,
Yeah.
probably would have been
yeah, that would have struggled. But yeah, just fucking, oh, there it is, bink, and hit it. Wish I got it on video. Didn't, but yeah, 600
Pixar
yards.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
And for the guy who told me when I first asked him to come to the class, who said, quote unquote, I need another carbine class like I need a fucking hole in my head. But okay. Was it worth it?
It was worth it. No regrets.
No.
Loved Joe. Loved the class. It helped that I knew all but like 2 people in the class. So
Yeah.
that was kind of cool.
It was a solid class.
But yeah.
I want to do a Mark 12 build now.
Everybody was running cans. Everybody had cans. That
Every
was so
single
cool.
person.
Yeah, 100% suppressed class.
That
That's
w-
the first
yes.
time I've ever been in one of those.
At least to do
Never
with a
going
SCAR
back.
wasn't running like.
I'd
Right.
pay extra for an all.
I think that needs to be a
Suppressed.
A
prerequisite.
premium.
Are you suppressed?
Especially in Texas.
Yeah. Anyway, you want to wrap this up? Or?
Yeah. So thank y'all for watching. Like Chris said, if you, well, I guess it's a little bit late if you're watching this out of order. You're already at the end. But go check out the actual podcast that we had with Joe. That was a really good podcast, and check him out too. Like he's taken quite a few classes, and he does a really good job
Fantastic
of explaining stuff and the concepts, and he's a very, very thorough and very well accomplished instructor. I really like how he presents information, but definitely take a class from him, and hopefully this is a new thing we're trying out, so hopefully this provided some value. Having a video AAR with all of us, or if you're listening, audio version. But anyways, I guess what I'm saying is thank you for watching. We appreciate y'all, and we will see y'all next time.
Thanks for coming on, Aaron. Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin, appreciate
Justin.
it. Thanks for listening.
Fuck me,
Doctor?
guys.
Doctor?
Doctor?
Doctor.
Doctor.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah,
We missed you on the last
wait.
one.
Ian-
Oh, hey,
Aaron's
whoa.
knocking off the...
And that's it.